Hello everyone, I'm bringing you a video today as something of a follow-up from Mannequin of the Month, and we're looking at one particular piece of kit which was shown on the mannequin, and that's a bandolier for carrying 40mm grenades. Now these were obviously US produced for use with both the M79 and later the underslung 40mm grenade launchers. Of course, by that point in the war, grenade vests and so forth were being introduced as well. But right the way through the end of the war, you see these bandoliers in use, and they were of course used by Australian and New Zealand troops in Vietnam as well, which is primarily the reason for talking about them here. Obviously featured on the mannequin looking at Australian kit from the very late involvement of Australian combat troops in Vietnam. So that's what we're going to have a look at now. I thought, having looked at it in brief on the mannequin, it would be worth having a closer look at this, looking at the various features which weren't apparent when looking at it as part of Mannequin of the Month. So here we have the bandolier we're going to talk about. As I say, this featured on the mannequin as part of Mannequin of the Month for this month. So I thought it was worth taking this off and having a closer look at it. It's a pretty simple bit of kit, obviously designed to be somewhat disposable. And for the vast majority of the Vietnam War, this was the common way of carrying 40mm grenades, both by US troops and indeed by Australian and New Zealand troops as well, which is primarily where my interest in this lies. As I say, somewhat disposable item, quite simple in terms of construction, and what we're going to have a look at here is obviously the details of the construction, details of the design, and how the grenades were carried. Later in the war, of course, grenade vests would be introduced and so forth, at first on a trials basis and then an issue basis. But as I say, for the majority of the war, this was the standard way of carrying 40mm grenades. So the main body of this is made from a cotton duck material. You can see that here, quite a loose weave cotton duck. And then the tabs that close each compartment for a grenade are made of this tape. You can see here this green herringbone tape, and then you have a slightly coarser webbing tape used for the, I want to say shoulder strap, but the tapes on each end. And you can see these are loose. These haven't been cut. They were issued with they haven't been cut by an individual. They were issued with a tape on each end that could be tied off to the desired length or tied onto equipment, that sort of thing, to mean you could carry a large number of grenades by sort of slinging these in various convenient positions, although it's nevertheless a very awkward way of carrying grenades. Two separate sections of this, each contains 3 grenades with this section in the centre, which is obviously designed to give this some sort of flexibility around the body when it's carried. If you had the grenades all carried together, there's a stiffener in the bottom of these. If you had, say, another section in the centre, it would probably make this less comfortable to carry, and it would make it more difficult to sort of tie onto things and stow. So from that point of view, it just gives plenty of flexibility for carrying this, and hopefully making it as easy to carry as possible, basically. As I say, you've got 3 compartments, or you've got one large compartment with a separate closure for each, basically. And this end, I've already undone the snaps or press studs to show here. You can see you have a reinforcement piece of the webbing tape across the back there, where these are stitched on. So the construction is very, very simple. You can see rough around the edges. It's essentially a disposable bit of kit, as I say. And you have here that these are plastic reproduction 40mm grenades, but they nevertheless work quite well for my purposes. But you can see that the designation and so forth on there, which is quite faithfully replicated. We'll draw these here. And then inside you have what's colloquially referred to as the egg cups, for obvious reasons. We'll see when I get them out here. These are the taller examples. There are also short examples of these produced as well. And these basically provide for stiffening inside the pouch, and a separate container for each of the grenades. And you can see they slot in there quite neatly. Some of these, as I say, are only about 2 inches tall, so they just hold the head of the grenade, but it's still sufficient to keep them separated within the pouch and hold them securely. So not a huge amount of detail to look at here, really. The design of this, as I say, is very simple. Perhaps the most interesting part of it is the plastic insert, which is obviously designed to keep the grenades apart, and that just fits in there snugly, as you can see. And then you simply pop a grenade in each of each of these openings, and that's how you carry grenades in these. So as I say, this was the initial solution for carrying 40mm grenades for obviously the M79 initially, and then the experimental and issue versions of underslung 40mm grenade launcher intended for use with the M16. So as the war progressed, certainly by about 1969, You see more widespread use of nylon grenade vests, although they did have their issues in terms of retaining heat and so forth. Right the way through the end of the war, you do see these in use to some degree, as I say, both with US forces and with Australian and New Zealand forces as well. And obviously from the earlier days of the war, this is the way that 40mm grenades for the M79 were generally carried, although they were carried in pouches and so forth on the web equipment as well to a degree. Obviously, it's a very large round, so to carry an appreciable number of these, you need additional carrying capacity, and that's what the Bandolier here provides. So just a quick run through of this. As I say, not a huge amount of detail to see there because it is a very simple bit of kit, but I thought it was worth running through this in a little bit of detail, having looked at it in brief on the mannequin. So I do hope you found it interesting looking at this in a bit of detail. As I say, not possible when obviously presented on the mannequin in a Mannequin of the Month style video. So I thought it was worth taking this off the mannequin and having a look at it and looking at the various features which weren't evident in that video. So hopefully it has been interesting. If you have found it interesting and you'd like to see more of this sort of thing, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below, and that will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you would like to support the channel, you can. Both Patreon and PayPal are linked down below. And as I always say, a huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those two methods. It really is greatly appreciated. Thank you all very much indeed. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all linked down below. As I always say, if you'd like to get in touch but you don't really use social media, there is an email address in the description as well. That's everything for this video. So until next time, bye for now.